Reconvene regular session at 7 p.m. Roll call, please, Ms. Bell.
Good evening, everyone. Ms. Obadoza? Ms. Lajano? Ms. Benitez? Ms. Cardoza? Ms. Dalmacio? Ms. Tejada? Mr. Ochapinti? Mrs. Ian Garrett? Ms. Salahuddin? And Mr. Lee.
Here. Okay. Ms. Obadoza, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda, Dr. Deloria?
There are no changes, but there were some questions about the job description for the director of, what's it called, community relations / staff housing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to pull that out of consent tonight and talk about that and act on that separately or not. So I'll just put that out to you.
Okay.
And then also, can we amend the agenda to also adjourn, we have Ms. Father?
Is there a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item 9A, approval of the minutes.
I have a few changes. So, under 12A,
For which date?
we're looking at March 5th. So 12A, the fourth paragraph, trustee Carla Ann Garrett, capital G for Garrett. The following paragraph, and how it could affect multiple school districts, that's affect with an A. And the following paragraph, President Andy Lee. He thanked Horace Hinshaw for allowing him to MC the Pacifica Sports Hall of Fame. I would spell out MC, E-M-C-E-E, because I just imagine Andy rapping. MC Andy. And then I would add the section at the very end about adjourning in memory of Leatrice Strickland. So we can. And then for March 11th.
Oh, sure, is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended for March 5th, 2019?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So minutes for March 11th. Under discussion items, 6A, third, the last paragraph where it says, he mentioned the positive affects that students are having. That's effects with an E. And then I would suggest under 6B, staff housing update. Number 3, where it starts, Dr. Deloria mentioned the recruitment fairs. I would change housing project to the potential persons to potential applicants. And that's all I have.
Is there a motion to accept the minutes of March 11th as amended?
Motion to accept those minutes as amended.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, item 10, reporting out of closed session, the board approved case number 2018/19-20 and approved a settlement not to exceed $55,000. Okay, item 11A, board report. Start at the other end of the table, Ms. Obadoza.
Had a really busy week for Westmore last week. We had our first annual math week. It was very successful. So the math teachers, they had booths during lunch, and then we had guest speakers come in for all the math students who spoke about their professions and how they apply math. We also had Island Fiesta last week, so a bunch of clubs came together and they performed on stage. So we had Polynesian Club and Filipino Barkada Club, and then we also had professional dancers from outside organizations come in and perform for us. This week is Spirit Week, so we have a rally this Friday. It's our first night rally in 4 years, so the students are really excited for that. And it's also been busy because we've had cash testing, so students who have juniors in their third or fourth year classes put into like the theater, so that's like where they've held us for the past 2 days. So yeah, it's good.
For the last 2 weeks, we've been preparing for the CASP testing, and then we turned in our course request for the next school year. And last Friday was Spring Fest, and it had a good turnout. Like, a lot of people came and a lot of people performed. And this week, the same, we're doing our CASP testing. But I personally think we should inform students more on the option to opt out, because I know a lot of people feel like they're just forced to take the test. And then I'm just gonna let my peers report the rest, because we have our ASB report today.
So I did attend Island Fiesta. It was really fun. We had staff who performed. Coach Rex sang the national anthem of the U.S. national anthem, and Mr. Vargas had performed some pieces that he wrote, spoken word. But the students were just amazing. And including Island Fiesta, they also included dancers from Ireland. So there were some Irish dancers, and it was pretty awesome. And we, Mr. Lee and Ms. Salavini and I, we attended the San Diego School Board Association monthly meeting last night. And we can talk about that.
So I did a lot of things, and we had our site board meetings. So I went to Terra Nova and Oceana's, and then last night we did have our San Mateo County School Boards Association meeting, which was informative for everyone else. So we were good.
Did you talk about?
No.
Did you explain?
You know, I mean, the relationship between southern San Mateo County and northern San Mateo County continues to sometimes not be what I would like it to be, but we're working towards that. But the level of respect is not always there. And so if you're going to have a meeting on workforce housing and you put somebody to speak who hasn't even started the process as the representative board member, that's your decision. And not have either one of us do it. So,
And the North County table, we broke out into table sessions to share information, and just about everyone, every representative from North County is in the process of workforce housing. And we're, of course, the furthest along.
so I think that the thing that is just stood out to me is that out of our necessity and need, we have actually surpassed the southern districts in one thing, and that is just a new thing for them. Like, they've not had this experience where they are not the leaders on a specific item, so they're just not handling it well, which I get. I mean, you know, so it's hard for them to kind of hold us up and have us be the ones that are leading something. So we'll work into it gradually, but they are having Andy, and hopefully I'll see if I can go speak at another event that's happening tomorrow. So
Yeah, it was an interesting meeting. I mean, it was good to, actually, I think our small group breakout was really helpful to hear where our other districts up here are, you know, where they are in their process, and to be able to offer up to the other districts in the county that if they have questions, we, you know, stand ready as a resource. Because I think it is, I mean, ultimately it is to all of our benefits if everybody is able to house their teachers long-term. But we want to be first. Separately, I was able to be at the Thornton High School Career Day last Thursday, which was a lot of fun to talk about my day job and to share the things that I do within as a finance director in the architecture industry, and to actually, in some cases, just trying to explain what we do in our line of work. And it's fun when you work for a firm that also helped design the 2 office towers next to the Chase Center. So it's pretty fun to be able to explain that, and you can see the kids' eyes just sort of get big, and they start asking questions about what that looks like, and it was pretty cool. So I really appreciated the opportunity. Thanks specifically to Carla Polkoff for inviting me for that event. So it's a lot of fun. Dr. Gloria.
So yesterday, I was invited to the annual Thornton High School St. Patrick's Day lunch, where they invite, all their staff is there, of course, but all their partners were there as well. So it was really nice. I didn't go last year. This year I was invited. It was nice that they felt I'm part of their culture, so that was nice. And they had way too much food, including Girl Scout cookies. And it's the first time, actually, I've ever had corned beef, so.
What?
Yeah.
That's on tape.
It's too spicy for me, so.
I think we have different terms for like what spicy means. I think we have different definitions.
The Girl Scout cookies were just right, though. Also, just a couple of reminders. This Friday, Terra Nova has their talent show. And so that starts at 7 o'clock in the theater. I'm picking up Dave from the airport at 8:15, but I'm thinking maybe he should just Uber, because I love talent shows. So anyway, if you've got nothing to do Friday night, Terra Nova. And then Westmore actually has their talent show on March 29th. So March 29th is queued up nicely. You can do Senior X during the day, have a little break, and then go to the Westmore talent show in the evening. And that sounds like a nice March 29th, doesn't it? So we are in the throes of testing. So you heard from Jefferson's already done, but the other schools are all involved in testing. So it's kind of quiet on that. That's all I have for tonight.
Great. Okay, item 12, item 11C. ASB student presentation, Oceana High School. Come on up, Oceana, let's do this.
Yay.
So hi, I'm Mary Lou Bugai. I'm the ASB president.
Hi, I'm Maggie De Guzman, and I'm ASB treasurer.
Hi, I'm Katie Fistrom, and I'm in charge of the Public Relations Committee.
And we would first like to just begin with our student life section, so if you could turn to that one.
Yep.
All right, so the first things we're going to be talking about are our Spring and Winter Fest. So this semester we had our Spring Fest, which was last Friday, and our Winter Fest sometime in December. For Winter Fest, we did a Frozen theme festival that year. I mean that one. And then our Spring Fest was floral themed, so we did a lot of like flower crown making and all that stuff. There were a lot of different foods, activities, and performances. And during our Spring Fest, we actually filled up all our open mic spots, so that was like a really good thing because that never really happened before. We also invited our upcoming 9th graders, so all the 8th graders that were thinking about coming to our school, we opened that event up for them so they can see like what it's like for our festivals. We also had a lot of parent participation, so one of our ASB parents actually made the japchae for us, so one of the foods that we were selling. We actually sold like homemade food from her, so that was one more thing. The next thing is that we did sell our Winter and Valentine grams. So this is a recurring ASB fundraiser that we always have. And students basically just buy and sell grams for their friends or for themselves or for like staff or teachers. And we sell things like chocolates, roses, balloons, like blankets, or anything that relates to the theme of like winter or like Valentine's Day. We've had like little packages that also related to the theme. So for wintergrams, we've had a cozy package, and that included like a little blanket with like a little
like mug and like just like everything that's like cozy about winter. And then for Valentine grams, we had a little sweet bundle that included like a rose and like a teddy bear and like balloons, and it was just like a really great turnout. So overall, we sold 350 grams for both of these grams, and we've actually been building up our quality and our aesthetics. So, yes. The last thing on student life is our mid-year ASB retreat. So this is the first year that we actually had a retreat for ASB in the middle of our year. And this kind of helped us transition and include our freshmen that came in after, like, when they first come into the school year. Because we usually elect our officers the year before, so this kind of helped them bond and connect with us. As stated here, it does help with our ASB community bonding, and our theme for this retreat was art and leadership. So we had a San Francisco photo scavenger hunt. And since a lot of us are under 18, we basically got free Museum of Art, or the Museum of MoMA art tickets. And we basically went there and like used our environment to channel our creativity and problem solve like a citywide search for our scavenger hunt. And yeah, that scavenger hunt was created by our advisor, so we were all kind of surprised by how it went. Like we didn't come into it knowing like what was gonna happen already. Yeah, exactly. So it was just like a fresh start for all of us. And one of the highlights during our retreat for me was to bond with people who we weren't really used to talking to within ASB, because usually we're sitting with committees, but this time we got paired up in like different groups, and we had to answer like these 36 like psychology questions that are meant to bond people together. And you kind of just answer these questions throughout the whole scavenger hunt, and it just really helps like understand each other like in a deeper way. And yeah, so now I'm going to hand it off to Mary Lou, and she's going to talk about our school-wide events. So for our school-wide events, we had Career Day in January. So we had 35 different careers presented by 36 different community members. And most of those presenters were actually Oceana alumni, so it was really interesting to hear from them. For instance, I was a student host for a flight attendant who was an Oceana alumni, and it was just interesting to hear about her experiences as flight attendant and like her years after Oceana. And another memorable moment from Career Day was actually that the venue or the room that we had prepared for the presenters for their lunch, there was issues with the heater, so we had to move that area to a different room, and it was just 30 minutes before the lunch was supposed to happen. So it was really interesting to see like the problem solving that we had as a community between students, teachers, and admin to see how we handle that within those 30 minutes that we had. So that was pretty memorable and interesting. And
Memorable.
Yeah. Yeah, you can imagine it was pretty hectic, but we got it done, and no one really realized anything, and it still went pretty smoothly, and we got a lot of compliments from the food that was actually made by students from our food and nutrition class. And yeah. And for the next one, we had a sock and hygiene drive throughout January to March. And it says on the flyer that staff, students, and families contributed in donating canned foods, but we meant to put socks and hygiene products. But in total, our donations totaled up to 210 socks and 1,186 hygiene products, which we plan on donating to Project Blossom and the St. Martin de Porres. And following that, we also have senior exhibition at Oceana. So 121 seniors this year passed their paper, and 120 are presenting on senior exhibition day, which is next Friday, March 29th. And some of those seniors are also in the certificate program that we have at Oceana. And we also have 52 community evaluators that will be watching those presentations, and they're actually trained by one of our Oceana teachers, Ms. Schwab, to learn how to like grade and evaluate each presentation. Yeah. So I will now pass it to Katie, who will be talking about athletics and staff.
Okay, so for boys basketball was able to win their first league game within the last 3 years, and our girls basketball team was able to make the Central Coast sectionals, which is good. It was our first year having a boys soccer team, and that was a success, and the girls soccer team did good as well. Track and swimming have just started, but the girls varsity swim team is already undefeated for the first 3 meets so far. Wrestling, we had about 5 or so wrestlers, boys and girls mixed, make CCS. And one of the wrestlers, Kaylee Willis, was actually the first Oceania athlete to be awarded with the Sportsmanship Award. So that's a big success. Then for our staff moral, we have the staff working around issues to resolve of staff burnout and a need for connectiveness. So we have Ms. Madden, Ms. Ehrenholt, Ryan, Mr. Cruikshank, and Mr. Corp working to resolve that issue and support our staff better.
Yeah, so more to come for Oceana is we have prom in May, which we've been planning out throughout the whole school year, and we also just started ASB elections for the following school year, which we will have from this week up until next Friday, where students can sign up and get their forms in. And then we also have interim coming up, which is the first week of April, and just to give you an idea of what interim is, I'm in the camping and hiking interim, so we'll be out in the Pinnacles National Park, just hiking and bonding with the other students in it. And lastly, we have Last Rally coming up in May, where our theme for it is season, so each class is a season. So the seniors are spring, the juniors are summer, the sophomores are fall, and then the freshmen are winter, I believe. And yeah.
Winter's
So that's pretty much all we had prepared for this presentation, but just as a senior and considering the fact that this will be my last board presentation, I would just like to highlight the fact that it's been an honor being able to present to you guys about how amazing Oceana is, and I think that Oceana really helped me grow as a student, and the people and the community has always been so loving and welcoming, and being in ASB throughout the last 4 years has been really helpful for me as a student and individual, and it's just been amazing to see the growth as a school and just the students. So yeah. And if Maggie would like to talk too, because she's also a senior. I am also a senior. Yes, we are both seniors, so this is going to be our last board meeting. I don't know. She said basically everything that I was going to say. I think also being a part of Oceana's ASB for the last 3 years of my high school career has been very impactful for me. I don't really know how to I don't know if that's the right word, but I've learned so much about myself and how to be a better leader for my community, and not just this school campus, but outside in the world. And I'm really grateful that I get to be here to speak to you guys too, and be a part of I don't know, something just bigger than what we have around, if that makes sense. Sorry. Yeah.
No, stay. Comments from board members, student and or adults, or both?
I can't believe you're a senior. I remember when you were in elementary school. First of all, this is an amazing handout. It's so visually beautiful and easy to follow, and when you're talking about how you were scrambling half an hour before and you said, well, we got it done. Well, you always get it done. Pretty much every ASB and JUHSD, these are the student leaders, and you always get it done. And Oceana, just the inclusivity and thinking about inviting the incoming ninth graders. That is something we always talk about we need to start doing, but you guys are doing it. And I also want to thank Ms. David for your leadership with these amazing students. I just, I mean, you've got a flyer and you include staff morale on it. That's, you're really going, because you're thinking, that's how inclusive you are. I mean, you're thinking of your teachers and how they make your lives better. So I just want to thank you for all the work that you do, and good luck to our seniors.
Yeah, I just piggyback off of what Ms. Tejada said. Huge thank you to your teacher for everything that she's doing, because this is where it all starts. And you know, I've known for a long time. Oceana was my introduction to the Jefferson Union High School District a long time ago. Was very politically active in education issues, and we partnered with Oceana and did a lot of different activities before my kids were in high school. So I was really excited about the school, and it really piqued my interest in learning about JUHSD as a whole. It started with being on campus at Oceana. So I've always loved and known how special the campus is. And then one of my twins ended up going there, and when I would describe, like, what's the Oceana experience like, I was like, I have a daughter, she's African-American female, who loves K-pop, manga, is an artist, and she found her tribe. You know, like, there's a tribe of kids at Oceana that was like, let's talk about BTS or whatever their name is, you know, so there's, no matter who you are or what you come from, Oceana is very welcoming and meets you where you are. So that's the one thing that I really love about Oceana. And to hear that there are students in the certificated program that are going to be part of the Senior X is just, that just kind of made my day. So I may have to email Ms. Schwab. I told her put me wherever, but I may have to ask if I could do one of those, because that is extremely special. And just to think of, you know, being a special education parent myself, you just want your child to have the same experience as everyone else. So to be able to be the parent and to come that day and participate in that way, I think, thank you for doing that. I mean, I think not only for the students, but for the whole family to celebrate their student just like everybody else celebrates their student on that day. And then thank you guys all for your service. You know, I hope you stay engaged. If you stay in the neighborhood, you know, we need replacements. So if you ever want to run for school board, you know, I think you guys are the type of leaders that we're looking for to help lead the next generation of our community into the future. So thank you so much.
Yeah, great presentation, especially, you know, I mean, I just want to hit on how proud I am of you guys for what you did with the sock and hygiene drive. Those are remarkable numbers to be able to, you know, I get out there and, you know, feed the homeless and stuff every couple of months, and I know how hard it is to get stuff out there to them, and the fact that you guys raised as much as you did, especially hygiene products, which is always a necessity for the homeless. That's remarkable. So kudos to you and the entire Oceana community for doing that. And your words at the end, man, I mean, we need to find a way to use that and have the entire district hear what these two young women just said to close out their presentation, because that's what we want. That's what we want to hear, and what we want to see, how our district has impacted you in your education, and what you've learned, and how you can take it back out into the world. You know, the idea of you running for office isn't so far-fetched. There's a school district down in Salinas that has a 19-year-old board member.
That's pretty cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, crazier things have happened, you never know. But I really can't wait to see what you guys will be doing down the road in a very short time. I mean, you've already done some amazing things, and really just amazed at what your ASB has done and what this entire student body has done. So thank you, Ms. Hall and Ms. David, for everything that you guys are doing, and really grateful for the work you guys have put in. Students, anything you want to add?
part when you talked about how you handle the situation with the rooms. I think like you can really see who the real leaders are when you put people under pressure. And I feel like if that was me, I certainly would have like panicked or something. But you guys, it showed that you handled it so well when everything ran smoothly, even though that happened. And also like what Mr. Lee just said about like your closing remarks. As a senior, that personally hit me because it's like, you know, like how much you've like been through for the past 4 years. And I don't know, like I just met you guys now, but I have a feeling that you guys are gonna do so many things in the future. So.
Or Chanel, the other thing?
Yeah, adding on to like the staff lounge thing, I personally didn't even know that the heater like blew up. I thought it was intentional. That's how well that they handled like that situation. And then, yeah, I can relate to what you guys said at the end, even though I'm just like a junior, because just being in ASB with Miss David, like even specifically, has made me grow a lot. Like I think Katie can agree too.
Yeah.
Just having Miss David as a teacher. And then also, sorry, like we were talking about talent shows, but we actually have a fame night for 2 nights on the 18th and 19th of April from 7 to 9. And we'll be showcasing both the talents of our theater and visual classes, and our agricultural science class will be having a plant sale. So it's like showcasing many different works of the students. So you guys should come. And yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. So ditto what my board said to the students. Totally support that. But I do want to point out that every time I go to an ASB event, Miss David is there with the biggest smile. I don't think you know how to do anything other than smile. But I mean, times that are really stressed and they're trying to get things done and she's smiling and everyone's getting along. And, you know, being a teacher is a full-time job anyway. And when you take on a job like the ASB or any other, you know, club, team, anything like that, I don't know that most people know the hours that go into it. And not just the physical hours where you're at school, but even when you're laying in bed at night, you're busy planning for something that's got to happen, and it's your whole life. And so I'm just really grateful to your service to our students, and I'm also really grateful that you have a principal who supports you, because that's what when everyone works together. I know it sounds really kumbaya, but it's true, and I appreciate that. I have much affection and respect for both of you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Wonderful presentation. All right, item 12, consent.
So I just ask that we pull item 12A2 and add it, you know, at the end of the meeting, so we can, I just wanted to recommend some changes to the job description.
Okay, so do we want to do that under,
You
probably?
can leave it in, can I recommend that we approve the rest of the consent?
Yeah.
And then address this one immediately after.
Okay, all right, we'll do that. Okay. So is there a motion to approve consent minus item 12A2?
So moved.
Second?
All's in favor? Aye. All right, so let's go back to 12A2, Director of Public Relations and Staff Housing job description.
You got it?
Yep, I do.
Okay, so, the title, I thought it should be Director of Communications and not Public Relations, because Public Relations is very specific. It's out-facing, it's not in. So Communications is all-encompassing. And then it says Director of Communications and Staff Housing, and I this person isn't really the Director of Staff Housing. They're more coordinating certain aspects of it. So I think Director is a little misleading. Like if there is something that's an issue with the staff housing, this is not where the person that you should start with. So I thought Director of Communications and Staff Housing Coordinator was more reflective of what the job actually did.
So who would you see as being in charge of staff housing once it's all done?
The housing board would be more of the
Right.
leading
Okay.
authority, and then us as a district and board would be the leading authorities on it, and not really, this job was more of the communication on like vacancies, wait list, all that stuff.
I'd prefer not to use the term coordinator in the title because coordinator implies another management position.
Got it.
Can we brainstorm something else? So I'm completely agree with communication. So director of communication, and this is a long title, staff housing facilitator?
Yeah, facilitator works too.
Would that work?
I first thought facilitator, and then I was like. And then in the job duties, so the first bullet, and then the first bullet and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The sixth bullet, that seems like the same bullet to me. That could be combined because this develop, implements, and directs an annual systematic communication plan that effectively communicates district priorities and goals, et cetera. And then the other one is develops and coordinates policies and procedures regarding all district public relations matters, including media relations, community relations. That, to me, is what a communication plan is. Like, the communication plan would be reflective of policies, procedures, public relations, so I think it could be the same bullet. I think it just seems repetitive.
So because that sixth bullet, so we've got communication plan, and then the other bullet actually.
Is what the communication plan is.
Kind of includes, because it's not limited to that, it includes all those different things, so we could, because then we could be open to defining later what a communication plan is.
You want to delete the first bullet and move the sixth bullet up to the top?
Or just keep
Leave the first
Yeah, leave the first, because I think the communication plan is the thing that's the all-encompassing document, and then the sixth one just kind of describes what I believe would be in the communication plan.
Remove the sixth bullet?
Well, actually, because that one says develops and coordinates policies and procedures.
But the communication plan would be the policies.
Would be that.
Yeah.
It would be that.
Right.
So,
Is that the seventh bullet? I don't know which one.
That's number 7.
Oh, is that the number 7? Yeah, it's hard because it's not numbered. It's a 7.
I'm like,
Excuse me, 7.
okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Or
we
just
get rid of
combining
this.
them, you could just put them as one bullet. Because I feel like even breaking them up is just kind of, do you know what I'm saying? And then supports recruitment and retention programs. To me, it was like, is that an HR position, or is that, like, in what way?
Well, in communication. It's a communication thing, so.
Right. That's in
The fifth bullet
the
down?
fifth bullet. It says promotes faculty and staff housing, and then it says supports and recruitment and retention programs. I think these are two.
Or housing?
Huh?
No,
It's, the first part says
right. it's
promotes
regarding
faculty and
housing.
staff housing. So I feel like that's its own bullet. And then, so, it supports recruitment and retention programs. I don't know if we need to, does that need to be called out?
I
Because they would
don't
support-
think it needs to be said.
Right,
We can just delete that phrase and
Okay.
just leave it as promotes faculty and staff housing.
okay. And then on the second page, the first bullet and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The seventh bullet, again, I think seems like the same bullet. Develops, implements, and maintains a district-wide strategic media plan. And the other one collaborates, supports, and advises district administration on management regarding the appropriate public. So that's the media plan. Like, again, I feel like the overarching thing is the number 1 bullet, and then it's a description of what that is the 7th bullet. So it's just, I feel like they could be the same bullet. And then the second one develops graphic materials to assist in all types of presentations or departments. What graphic materials? Like, what are we asking a person to do?
So I would even include in here a conversation about our district graphic, but,
Or
I would like to get some standardized materials that we all use and agree to, and any kind of I just want to make sure that anything that we put out to anybody, that we're putting our best foot forward, and
So I think that's like a development of a brand.
Yeah, developing graphic standards probably, rather than graphic materials per se, graphic standards.
Or is this person handling the materials? Because you can develop graphic standards, but are they also going to be in charge of, creating the materials? Is it all going to start in one place and be centralized? Is that what we're saying? Is that what you were thinking?
Because I understand what you mean, because like
Yes.
part of my job in public relations is that there's a company brand, and everything has to be under the company brand. So you have to use the company logo, you have to use the company font, you have to use a company PowerPoint presentation.
Yes.
So I think the development and management of the company, of the district brand, I get. So, okay, that makes sense to me.
So do you want to change, so that obviously didn't come through in the bullet that I provided, so,
I'm fine with changing it to the district brand.
Yep, that works.
Okay. And then,
So what are we changing it to? Develop.
district brand.
and the management of the district brand.
Develops and manages?
I really want this person to oversee it, because we started with having common websites, and already things are all over the place. So having some of that standardized, so no matter what website you go to,
Right.
you know where to find a list of the staff, for example. Do you know what I mean?
And then, so, 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth one, I feel like is another repeat. Directs and leads communication projects, is assigned and develops projects to be completed and carried out by the district's comprehensive communication plan. I feel like that's just carrying out the communication plan. And then this one, assist in the development, recommendation, and administration of a department budget for the purpose of ensuring services are delivered in conformance with the district objectives within budget parameters. And so my question was, what department and what budget?
This person's department of one.
Oh, okay, so they're gonna be a new department of one, got it.
Department of one.
Okay, and they're gonna be assigned a budget.
Well, they're gonna need some kind of a budget.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. And then, do we want, the legislative piece, is that gonna be a key component that they are that's a lot to watch. The different education laws is a lot.
It's just a common thing that's in a lot of job descriptions for this person, so I put it in there. There's a lot of, this won't all be accomplished in the first year.
Yeah, I'm just like
Right.
throwing a lot of
Onwards, it's gonna scare people off.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that was my concern a little bit, that it's a lot of stuff, so, but if you feel like it's needed or you need it, then I'm fine leaving it. It was just a question of, is it essential?
It's probably not essential. As long as all of you keep communicating with me, if all of you
Yeah.
keep doing that. We can delete that.
And then in knowledge, this is just a term, like, not using the term parent, but because we have people who take care of our students that are not parents. So, caregiver or guardian. In knowledge now, and then it says parent and public involvement, and so, or we expand on the word parent and say parent, caregiver, and guardian. It's just, there's more than just parents. And then in other skills, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it says assist in budget development for district-wide program and in monitor expenditures. So what is the district-wide program?
It's the communication.
Oh, okay.
This is really just about being part of the budget development process.
Oh, okay, can we say, I think probably saying that,
Assistant budget.
development process and communication.
Or district-wide communication program? Is that what you're saying?
You could just probably leave it as assist in budget development and monitor department expenditures is probably.
Okay. Sounds good.
And then the last thing I have, and I'm done, is it says read, write, and speak English. To me, that is kind of like an HR red flag to say English outright. And normally they say have excellent communication skills. I'm done.
Okay. So do we want to approve this with those changes?
Are you okay with doing that,
Or do
approving
you
it
wanna-
so
or do you
that
wanna
we can
wait?
post it? I mean, we're happy,
Yeah.
Tony and I can make the changes and put it in the recap, but it would be awesome if we could start recruiting for a position effective July 1st. This is kind of the recruitment season, so.
Okay. So is there a motion?
I move to approve with those changes.
Second, thank
Oh.
you.
All those in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you very much. And we're-
Thank you.
All right, so item 13, public comment. Do we have any cards this evening? Okay. Okay, so item 14, discussion, 14A1, blueprint for equity summary presentation. Ms. Baca.
Good evening, President Lee. Good evening, members of the board. Tonight, I will be presenting the blueprint for equity that EdTrust West helped us. And so this process had started way back in January of 2018. And on February 14th was their last day to work with us on this plan. So before I start, I just want to thank all of the stakeholders involved in this process. We've had hundreds of stakeholders involved in this, and we spent many hours reflecting, talking, figuring out what we can do to make sure that our students are prepared for college and career. So EdTrust West basically helped us analyze our current education program so that we can develop consensus among the stakeholders for necessary reforms and move the district toward an instructional program that prepares all students for college and career. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide you with the overview of the blueprint and the plan and the process of this whole partnership with EdTrust West. So the agenda will be, I will be going over the blueprint for equity process, then the recommendations of the staff members and the stakeholders that worked on this plan, and finally some next steps. So this work had 3 phases, and the theory of action is that the equity audit or the plan with its findings will inform the goals and actions articulated in the blueprint for equity. And in turn, this blueprint for equity will be embedded and enfolded in the LCAP so that we can plan our finances and we can plan on how we're going to increase college and career readiness for the district. EdTrust West really helped us and our district on how to use data to inform our next steps. And it brought all of our schools together to discuss what's going on district-wide. It was very awesome to see different teachers just interact and talk about different programs that they didn't know existed before. So this brought our district, I feel, much closer. So the equity audit is the report. It has findings and recommendations, and to create that, they needed lots and lots of data. So what they had done is they collected the transcript of the class of 2017, and what they looked at is the patterns in student course taking. What are some of the choke points? Why our students were not eligible for A through G? And were there any interventions in place to help our students become more successful? So they take a look at that. And the other thing that they had asked us is to give them a whole bunch of artifacts for each of our school sites. So it includes master schedules, bell schedules, spacing guides, counselor handbook, meeting agendas, everything for each of the school sites that we had to submit to EdTrust. And with that, they also created surveys for students, parents, and staff. In addition, They also held focus groups that included administrators, students, parents, teachers, counselors, and support staff. Finally, there was a community and data team meeting where we invited our partner districts, community college, and other stakeholders. So this was all the data gathering piece for the report, which is the equity audit. Now, with a plan, what we had to do was create a blueprint for action planning. Now that we had all of that data in place, what are we going to do to address the equity issues in our district? So to do that, we had created a working group. The working group had 26 participants from all school sites. It included teachers, counselors, administrators, representatives from the special education department, EL, and CTE. We met for 5 days, for the whole entire day from 8 o'clock till 3 in the afternoon. And within those sessions, we also look at some equity toolkit sessions where we had started out on let's make sure that we understand what equity is. We talked about privilege, some bias and microaggressions, and how do we lead with an equity lens. So in those 5 meetings, we looked at 8 different topics. In the curriculum and instruction, student support, school climate, English learner and special education, college and career, professional learning, family and community engagement, and alternative education. So what happens in the morning is we draft that plan, and in the afternoon, the steering committee comes in. So
Did you accidentally?
No, I didn't. So the steering committee consists of 29 participants of students, teachers, parents, administrators, partner schools, even the county office was here, and the community college. And what they did was they looked at the plan that the working group had created and then pointed some of the, the possible holes, some of the things that, what have you thought about this? I think you missed this. So it's like a back and forth dialogue on how to improve the plan. So here's an example of some of the work that we had done. So first we had brainstormed some of the root causes as to why we have our problems of practice. Then from the root causes, we developed some possible solutions. And then in the afternoon, again, the steering committee looked at that and provided feedback. And as we were doing that, we had to make sure that I know that there are barriers to successful implementation. So we had to keep that in mind when we are planning our plan. So the recommendations, as I had mentioned, we looked at 8 different topics. And what we found out is that there were a lot of recurring themes within the 8 topics, just kept coming up over and over again. And it so happened that they actually fit into our LCAP goals. So LCAP goal number 1 is basically increase student achievement for all students. So one of the number 1 recommendation actually from almost all of the groups is to change the school structure. I'll go into more depth that in a little bit. Improve our instructional practices. The actions that are aligned to goal 2, which is increase school connectedness and climate, is we need to improve our communication. We need to practice culturally responsive teaching and learning, and strengthen support system, not just for students, but staff as well. And then finally, with our LCAP goal 3, which is to increase additional student services, they gave us some additional targeted supports for students and staff. So what I'm about to show you is an extensive list. I'm not going to go over into each one of them in depth, but I wanted to give you a preview. As far as changing the structure and old school practices, the first thing that came up is change the bell schedules. So we had one teacher who had actually gone to school at Jefferson Union High School, and she had mentioned that her schedule was pretty much the same exact schedule as when she was in high school to what it is right now. The only difference at that time is that they had 2 lunches, staggered lunches. And so things have changed, and yet our structure, our bell schedule has not changed. What teachers and staff is really asking for is to provide our students an additional time to provide either enrichment, some intervention, give them some time to take additional career technical education courses, dual enrollment, and it just doesn't fit in the traditional 1st through 6th period. So again, what they would like to do is change the bell schedule somehow, some way to accommodate those changes. And the other part of it is change the schedule so that there is increased teacher collaboration so that we can work on our professional learning community. Because teachers are ready to work together and collaborate, but what is really missing is the time. So for next year, our plan is to plan out what is this going to look like? What structure are we going to put in place so that this happens? Jefferson High School had already started doing their research on this. They have about 10 to 12 members of their school had already visited Cappuccino High School to look at their schedule where they have a flex time within the day where it's similar to advisory, but it's more of like an academic support for students. What happens is that students or teachers can make appointments to students and say, you know, okay, you need to make up this test. I want to see you during this time. You need additional support and exponents. I want to see you at this time. And there's an app that was developed to make sure that there is some tracking mechanism on where students are. So they are looking at that model right now. And there are also some students that, you know, may just need to play basketball because there is nothing for them at that time. And so it doesn't happen every day. It's twice a week. So they are looking at that model, and we're also researching other models too. So the county office is also helping us research other models in the area on what we can possibly look at as far as bell schedules go. The next one is aligning curriculum and grading practices. So again, this came up several times, and I know that this report or this recommendation also came up from the student advisory survey, saying that, you know, what an A in one class, they want it to mean the same A as another class. So Ms. Robinson and I are really working with the teachers to revise our scope and sequence, develop some benchmark assessments, and align our grading practices. Improve current structure and practices to support equity. So what they would like to see is each student not just create a 4-year graduation plan, but an A through G graduation plan. Make that the default. They understand that there may be, you know, not everybody may meet the A through G, but we should set the standard as the A through G 4-year planning plan. Also create a master schedule that is student-centered and equity-driven. They also would like to restructure some of our leadership team in meetings so that there are objectives and that there are deadlines and that everyone is held accountable. We also need to work on revising job descriptions of our department chairs. Examine the criteria for continuation school referral. So what they would like to see is standard protocols that something is put in place, some intervention is put in place at their comprehensive school before they are referred to the continuation high school. So they are looking at that.
Sorry.
And Ms. Beswina will be the person in charge of looking at that.
I'm about to get referred.
And because what they had found out is they looked at the percentage of Hispanics at Thornton High School. So district-wide, we have about 28% Hispanic, and I want to say there's about 50 or so percent of Hispanic at Thornton. So they really want to look at that. They also suggested an open enrollment in advanced placement courses so that we are shied away from the really strict criteria on getting into AP classes. They also recommended that for Apex credit recovery to submit it to the UC portal so that it is A through G. We need to redesign our study skills class so that it's not more of like a homework center, but it's more focused and targeted. And here's one that also came up over and over again, which is the Math Bridge course. All the teachers, even almost all the math teachers, agree that it has not served a purpose that it was meant to. However, what we need to do is plan and provide supports to the students that will not be placed in Math Bridge. So what's gonna happen again next year is to phase it out and really develop a plan on how are we supporting the students if they do not have the Math Bridge class. We also explored health to be submitted as an A through G year-long class and actually use this period where counselors can come in and embed counseling support. Because what is happening is students is really asking for, how to enroll in UC or CSU or just in general like counseling topics. And because of time factor, sometimes they're only seen, once a year. They're visited in their classrooms once or twice a year, and it's just not enough. So if they can visit into the health classes, there's an understanding and there's certain curriculum that counselors will present during that time. And finally, we need to make sure that the A through G courses are audited accurately year per year.
Before we go, because there's a lot on each
Yep.
slide, so can we just discuss this
Yes.
slide and then do it that way? And then also, this is where I would really love to hear from you guys as well, on this stuff. I mean, do you ready to jump off first, or?
Sure. For the bell schedule, I think something that would be like, not simple, but more doable than like recreating the whole schedule of every school is like rotating the classes. So you're not having the same class in the morning every single day, because people they're often late or they're tired in the morning. So like people might not do as well in that class and the last period class because it's the end of the day. So students are just focused on like leaving school. Like I know people check the clock a lot.
So I know last year we had Jefferson and Terra Nova High School with a rotating schedule. And because of just really our difficulties finding teachers, that there may be an opportunity or a chance where we have to split a teacher, meaning that maybe 3 sections in one school and 2 sections in another. And if the schools are rotating, then it will be really hard to do that. Also, we are looking at expanding our CTE program where they may go to Skyline College in the afternoon. And if it's a rotating schedule, it will be really difficult to do anything like that. Dual enrollment.
Like the old school ROP. So, I mean, but this is a legitimate point, and I know a lot of teachers have brought up Chanel's point as well, is that if your first period or if your last period, you're kind of like swimming upstream with attention and keeping folks on track. So if it's not a rotating schedule, and it would be good to hear from the teachers on their ideas, like if it's not a rotating schedule, is there something else that we could do to engage students in the first and last period of classes? Yeah.
I think that's connected to pedagogy and how you engage students and what are the strategies that you use for that.
I'm really interested in how we're gonna be implementing the AP system, because I know for Westmore specifically, I don't know if it's a teacher problem or we just don't have enough space, but when we say that we want to let students have more chances to take an AP course, will we have more support, as in more teachers coming in, or will teachers be asked to teach more than one period?
So for me, and then again, this is just me thinking outside the box, and it's not because I'm this has to be done, because I know sometimes when I say things, I scare people. So for the change in the bell schedule, in terms of teacher collaboration, I completely agree. And so I'm thinking, for me, Oceana is one of the models, right? Because they have their Wednesday collaboration days every Wednesday. How expensive is it for us to do that district-wide? Can we look at that at doing something, if it's not every week, if it's every other week, where we have an early release on Wednesday so that the teachers have time to collaborate, because they really don't like the beginning of the school day. You know, I mean, I've heard that repeatedly when I'm on campus, is that collaboration in the morning is just kind of a waste. But it seems to me that at the end of the day, every teacher that I know that has taught in another school and then has gone to Oceana to teach say they love that structure. So is there a way to recreate it, and how much would it cost, and what does it do, like, for our number of minutes that we're teaching per year? Like, do we have to extend the school year to do that? I think it would be good to have information on that.
I think the question is, because that kind of goes in with also the support period.
Right.
So, you know, we have X dollars, so are we talking about rejuggling the current schedule to include collaboration and an intervention period a couple times a week? Or are we talking about something that changes the salary schedule? I mean, are we gonna, because if we're gonna lengthen the day, people are gonna, you know, work more. So I mean, I think we have a lot of research to do here in terms of going out and seeing what, it is hard to get everything in a 6-period day though, I mean,
Yeah.
it just is.
And then I'm wondering, like, is helping with better collaboration, will help it foster less need for intervention? You know, like, is there a lot of need for intervention right now because teachers don't have the time to do the work and work together as a unit to strengthen their skills? And if we focused on strengthening their skills, would that lead to less need for the amount of intervention that we currently need? Is my other,
So we certainly have to improve our Tier 1 program, which means how do you, as the teacher, how do you provide that first round of intervention? But there are a lot of other equity issues. You know, for example, if a department decides that they're gonna allow students to retake tests, or to make up tests, I mean, it's really hard to expect students to be able to do it before school or after school when they're not at their best, you know, or during their lunch hour. So I think there's always going to be a need, once we have it in place, to have a couple of periods during the week where you have some kind of intervention, enrichment period. You're gonna have students who are gonna be absent and need to be retaught, and so I think it's everything. I mean, I think we need to work on the Tier 1, and I think we need to get consistent in job alikes, but I think we're always gonna have a need. And that's a real equity thing. If you want students to have these opportunities, you've gotta build it into the regular school day. So I don't know that would ever go away once we had it.
right, and I'm not saying it would go away, but I'm saying would there be less need for it? Would it just be less students that would need, you know, how much intervention would be required if they were being engaged properly from the start, is what I'm saying. But no, I completely agree that there's always gonna be a need for intervention somewhere with some students, but it's just more of, we can't do everything all the time, so looking at where we focus, I think was my train of thought. Or where do we start? Like, what do we start with?
Some things we've already started, so like the scope and sequence, but if we don't figure out a way to give teachers more meaningful collaboration time and more frequent, because the amount of, is it 18 days they have right now for collaboration? And when I pointed out to the principals, and actually at our labor council meeting, you have schools who are working on WASC, you have coaches who want to get up and share strategies. You always, there's all these draws on the collaboration time such that the number 18, and some days are like circle up, and so now you're down to 10 days, and then on those 10 days, there's a part of the 2 hours you've got to go over just stuff that's happening, testing's coming up. And so all that collaboration time gets eaten up. So we've got to figure out a way to make it part of the weekly structure.
When you say create a master schedule that is student-centered and equity-driven, what does that look like?
So some of the suggestions is perhaps as much as possible creating like similar preps or having the same preps for, let's say, EL teachers, so that because, you know, collaboration is time, doesn't happen often, if we schedule it so that EL teachers can meet at this time, then it would help students. We have to make sure that students are placed properly, which means that we have to be looking at their course history, looking at their plan, making sure that, they're are enrolled in a visual and performing arts, the only class that they need in order to graduate. One of the other suggestions, again, is, the opening up the AP policy. So there are a lot of, scheduling students with IEP first. Make sure that they're scheduled first, and then our English learners, and then everyone else can, be around that area. So we just really need to be really mindful on how we're scheduling our students, because it could pretty much track them where they're not accessing any of the other classes.
And then if we have health as an A through G year-long class, and then you said we embed counseling support, would it still be a 9th grade class? Okay, so we would embed counseling support for the 9th grade class, but how could we do that for the other?
The other ones would probably be a similar process right now. Either they come through the English class or the math classes, or they could partner up with another teacher in the class where can we do our lessons in your class and embed with whatever they're doing. So, but they wanted, to catch the students as early as possible, starting with the 9th grade, so that, they can see and meet their counselors freshman year.
So for health, I totally get that we need to get the counselors in with the 9th graders. But if we do health as a year long, then how does that fit in with foreign language? How does it, or do we go back to certain kids just don't take health? And those are usually the kids that are on the AP track don't take health because they're taking science, foreign language, depending on the school that you're at.
Right now, with the exception of Oceana has a year-long health class.
Right.
The other schools there's a backup to the health class.
Yeah.
And so again, what they're, trying to do is, because right now health is not A through G. So if they make it A through G, it's another A through G class that they're taking, because right now it is not A through G.
I think the question though is, what do you do? Do you put off your science a year? Do you
Right,
put,
that's
because there's only 6 periods in the day, so how do you get started on?
So my question is,
They would have a foreign language with health as a freshman. They will have one elective that they can choose. But it is something that Dr. Deloria and I have explored to even, do we embed health in other courses so that it frees up another section for other electives too.
And then so my suggestion was also, does it have to be 9th grade? Could it be senior year? Because there's more seniors that have, their schedule is sometimes a little bit more loose. And then also, we have been getting a ton of requests to include some sort of life skills class, which I think would easily work in health. So on their way out, they're getting health and they're getting life skills, and this is how you do a resume. I think that all could work in one class, but again, this is just me with an idea. This is not.
Yeah, I like that idea, but, when I think about Carly taking health right now, they're doing the nutrition section, but what she said was really, really eye-opening and helpful was healthy relationships. She said it still was a little cringy because they're young, but she said it really, the kids really opened up to it, and it's essential.
Right.
I think something, and we don't have to make this decision today, but a conversation that needs to be had over and over and over again is when you're trying to give students opportunities in CTE, and you're helping them get their A through, remember, A through G is the minimum.
Right.
And you're trying to give them some kind of a dual enrollment, and what if they want 4 years of VAPA? That's why many high schools have gone to embedding the health requirements in other classes
I see.
to free up that period. My larger concern is how do we get to a district-wide counseling curriculum so that students are, by grade, getting what they need? And, you know, I've seen districts handle that in different ways. There's actually some curriculum you can purchase. I don't know that that's the way to go. But certainly the national counseling standards give guidance on that. I think that's the real question for me, is how do we make sure that students get the counseling support that they need
Right.
all 4 years? And it's different, right? There's, what you get as first semester freshman is very different than second semester of your sophomore year. So there's different things there. And for me, and maybe that's coming in another.
As far as the counseling, what I would like to do for next year, and I had already informed the principals, is that, so in the past, we meet with the counselors, the district-wide, twice a year, once in the fall and once in the spring. And I just don't feel like that is enough, so I really would like to meet with them on a monthly basis to just check in and really develop that coherent, counseling program to support our students. And so that's gonna start next year.
Is there some, and if you're gonna talk about it, I'll stop, but is there something that we're gonna hear about capacity building for our counselors on our national standards?
No, can talk about it right now.
That would be an ask for me.
Yeah.
I think we've neglected them for a while. Yeah. I think it's time to invest in our, spend a lot of money on counseling. We need to go invest in them.
Is there anything else on this slide?
You two were talking, did you have anything? A lot of people don't go because it's after school, and even when they go, I know some people who just like look up the answers online, like it's just like Apex answers. The internet. Yep.
Especially because it's all on computer.
I mean, they can look up the answer to tests online?
Oh, I don't know. Like someone just told me that you could just look up the answers for whatever.
And the answer to that is yeah, the whole, yeah,
I have no problem if somebody's looking up a question.
They can Google the answers, but what Apex does is they have their, a test that needs to be proctored by a teacher. So, probably their daily questions they could Google, but, once they have to take the test, it's proctored.
We'll move on to the next slide.
Next one is improve instructional practices. So this is all about PD and high-quality training. Again, we need to support our teachers in Tier 1 instruction. As an example, we need to continue with constructing meaning and instructional coaching. Also, the request is the teachers would like some kind of PD or a refresher on an annual basis on topics like our graduation requirements or any update with A through G, ELD, CTE pathways, because, they've heard it once, but we have new teachers and they need to be constantly reminded on what these requirements are, because everyone is responsible for college and career readiness. Also, they recommend that we continue working with Circle Up to lead up to working on our implicit bias issues. Again, each school is different on where they are in working with Circle Up. And our goal is, again, with the implicit bias, so they want us to continue working with them. And also have some professional development on the following topics, like trauma-informed practices and / mental health, how to have courageous conversations or difficult conversations, and how to facilitate meetings and PDs so that it is very meaningful. Yep. Any comments to this?
There was something Dr. Delory had brought up at the Westmore meeting with regards to, I think, the AP teachers getting some additional AP training, something like that, with that annual.
Yeah, I mean, yes, and I don't know whether.
So we support AP training on a yearly basis.
So on the professional development, the only thing, I think these topics are great, and the only thing I would also add is disciplinary professional development on disciplinary issues, and how to handle, because again, we took away the ability to suspend, right, and to send out of classrooms, but we didn't do anything to help the teachers. If the students are gonna stay in a classroom, how do you deal with a difficult student? I don't think we've done anything on that at all.
Is that going to be part of the discipline matrix, or is the discipline matrix more at the administrative level?
Yes, that's a good question. So, the discipline matrix that we've asked all the schools about their tier 1 supports, and like you said, they're all different depending on, how stable their teachers are. But there's nothing across the district that says, this is how you handle these types of situations. That's been taught to our staff at this point.
And not only just handle, but like, these are the resources, right? These are the
Exactly.
resources that you have available to you.
Explicitly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and I think like, the whole point of suspension and expulsion was to improve instructional practices. Like, we can't teach them if they're not in the classroom, but I don't think any of that is coming to fruition with us, because they're finding other ways to get them out of the classroom, and because we've not helped them with any other practice. So I think it fits under here, but also.
So with discipline, it's under strengthened tiered support system.
Okay,
So I did mention that one.
okay.
So under tier 1 instruction, I know we put constructing meaning and instructional coaching there, but tier 1 instruction is really all about a coherent, standards-based curriculum that everyone teaches, that's time-bound. It's about assessment, using assessment to drive instruction. It's about interventions, first level, so I don't see that here.
Part of our aligning
Okay.
with the first one, so, training, creating those scope and sequence, and then the benchmark, and then training them for this part.
Then so also tier 1 should be inclusive, culture responsive, and engaging. So I definitely think an area that we need to work on in this district is how to be more engaging in the classroom. I mean, I think our students behave really well, but I'm in too many classrooms where it's just talk, the teacher talking. Even when I see the technology being used, it's really just using a PowerPoint instead of the overhead projector. I don't know if the students have any comments on that, but I would want to make sure, and I'm not saying every teacher's this way, but I'm saying overall, I think that some of our PD needs to be around how to make classrooms more engaging, not just constructing them. There are other ways to do that. I don't know, thoughts from the students?
Back up with what Dr. Deloria said, I found that to happen too many times in my classrooms. Like, specifically for math, like the presentations would be on slides, and that would be the whole lecture for the day. It's basically the teacher reading off of the slides. And the times when we are able to use technology, it's basically just like a site on the internet, and then we just do it by ourselves. But like times when the teacher actually interacts with us, I feel that that's kind of lacking in the classrooms.
Did we have engagement somewhere in the presentation? Did we talk about increasing student engagement in class, active engagement?
But I will add that in here.
I'm sure Dr. McGee is going to write a book just on this.
So improve.
Are we raising obedient students, or are we?
Yeah.
Improve communication. Again, a regular scheduled time for counselors to communicate and promote college and career readiness. What we also would like is to message out rebrand the meaning of A through G. That A through G is not just really college eligibility, but the minimum expectations for post-secondary success. So people in our group started thinking like, what would A stand for, or G, something kind of like, a catchy phrase or a logo on what A through G really, means.
Or just not use A through G. I mean, I think we use A through G because that's what the colleges and stuff use, but I don't understand why we use term that we have to explain to people, and why don't we just use a term that is the explanation? There's nothing requiring us to say A through G, especially when talking to parents. I mean, when we talk to parents and we explain what A through G is, I think they go, why didn't you just say that, you know?
I wonder, do we have to think about, because the A through G is again the expectation of 4 years of.
And I think for us, absolutely, like, we need to use certain terms in our discussions, but I don't understand why we have to carry those same terms to our community and stakeholders who could care, like, they could care less whether we call it A through G or the thing that they actually understand. That's not gonna, it's only gonna affect their understanding, it's not gonna affect anything else. So do we have to use A through G, or can we use, another term that we come up with?
Director of Communications.
So, because, colleges use A through G, we would still use that, but then the more common
Understanding of.
Well, I mean, it seems like there's two audiences. I mean, parents should understand what A through G
Right.
are, and we need to educate our parents with that. But certainly if we're talking to, local organizations and others in the community, I think something different would be.
Well, I don't even know if parents need to understand what A to G is. I think they do understand, these are your child completed all the courses that will get them into a certain college.
The minimum.
Right, they meet the minimum. I don't think, I think most parents, like, if you have graduating seniors, we could go through half the graduating senior parents and say, explain A through G. They probably wouldn't. But they do understand, my child took enough classes to get into college. And so that's why I'm like, why do we keep trying to force this terminology on them that they just don't get? Why don't we just use the terms that they understand?
I think it's a both and. I do. I think there's a process students go through when they go to college. It's all over all the forms and everything. But I would argue that we don't do a good enough job explaining what it is, and I think you can talk about the minimum requirements for college eligibility.
Or we just don't have to lead with it. Like, we could say, and that's what the A to G is, but we lead with A to G. And we lead with so many education-ese terms, like parents are like, this is the Charlie Brown classroom, and you're wonking me to death. Like, it's just the wah with the FAFSA and the A to G, and it's just so many terms.
Just call it ag.
Right.
It's really two things here. One is, and I don't even know if it's rebranding, it's really helping people rethink, because too many people think A through G is the top bar here.
Yes, that is true.
So that's one thing we have to correct. And the
Yeah.
second part is, making sure that every parent, and it really should happen before high school, understands what the minimum requirements are for post-secondary. I mean, we should be able to have those kinds of conversations. So I think this is actually two things.
I got you. Okay.
Oftentimes, they say, oh, you're going to community college anyway, so I'll just not put you in this class.
Right.
Don't take sport, do your math, don't take chemistry.
Additional things is collaborate with partner districts at least twice a year, and not just with our middle school, but also the community college. Create a new staff handbook for staff. Create related parent night topic-related parent nights that are streamed and recorded in multiple languages. And use multiple ways to communicate, for instance, text, remind.com, email, phone, call, and so on and so forth.
And and social media. So, and hopefully the new communications director, first task is the Facebook page, because that's where all the parents are.
And I get a note every day, 10 people have been to your page. They haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, so maybe drop that page and create a new one since we don't have the password.
Yeah. I don't have a password to the new one.
Huh?
I have a password to the new one, I just haven't done anything.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So just save it for the new person.
Exactly.
Next one is foster a culturally responsive system. So provide training on cultural humility, practice culturally responsive teaching, use professional learning communities to examine inequities in the school system, encourage diversity in hiring new staff, find teachers, staff who reflect our student body culturally. Strengthen tiered support systems for students and staff. So develop a mentor and buddy system for students also and for staff. Because we want to make our students and also our staff feel supported, especially during their first year. So develop some system of support. Increase instructional coaching sections to help retain staff. Adopt a social emotional curriculum to help students build skills about social emotional intelligence. Develop a discipline matrix that includes positive behavior and supports. And examine root causes of attendance issues and develop an action plan for tiered support. And finally, provide additional targeted supports for students and staff. So some of the things that they had recommended is offer additional dual enrollment courses, place ELD 3 in mainstream core content classes, because right now they're in a sheltered or content EL class. And what happens is that they are tracked and are not able to take other courses. So what we would like to do is group them in a mainstream class and provide either a paraprofessional or tutors to support in the classroom to help the teacher out. Hire a mental health specialist to oversee the district's wellness program. Free internet access to students and families in need. So Mr. Meyer is working on a grant right now to help us with this. Increase technology in the classroom and provide student transportation if needed.
Where? About student transportation?
Transportation, so for instance, to Skyline College, if they have to take a concurrent enrollment class in the evening, or sometimes they, need like field trips to Skyline College and they need additional support, provide that transportation. And so the communication plan, this was shared with the committee. And what I had done was, these are the group of individuals that we would like to communicate this plan to. And these are the targeted dates. And eventually, these actions will be embedded in the LCAP and will be asked for your approval in June. And for the following year, what we need to do is, of course, implement these actions and services and continue on a cycle of inquiry to see if it's working. So I know that, for some of them already, we still need to work out on a date or even a venue for the school sites so that we can communicate this information. I'm hoping that, our student advisory board will also hear some of these actions and services. We will be meeting with AFT. We had already actually met with our district advisory committee, and they had done a gallery walk and provided feedback already on some of these actions and services, and we'll compile that feedback that they gave us. And finally, I'd like to do a webinar so that we can stream this for our parents and whoever else is interested, and so that they can provide us with some feedback.
And then, so this is a communication plan. Are we going to get, is the feedback on, because I know in the further slides, we got feedback on how we roll this out, right? So I think, are we going to get a implementation plan that has a clear?
The implementation plan will vary, because some of these things, like on this slide, some actions are already in place and it's ongoing. So for instance, our scope and sequence work, we've already scheduled that. We've already scheduled a district benchmark. Also our constructing meaning training. So that has been happening right now, and also with Circle Up. Some of the actions that will require, in my opinion, some clear timeline plan is, how do we change our bell schedule, the discipline matrix. If we were to redesign or repurpose some, the math bridge, we also need a plan and a timeline for that. So it will really depend on these actions and services on, whether we are already doing it and we are just making sure that we are continuing to do so. And what we would like to do in the next several weeks is invite the same group of staff, but just a smaller group, and start working and prioritizing on what should we do on next and what could we do next. So again, those 26 people, it was very sad because I heard a lot of comments saying like, it's so sad that this is our last day, can't believe it's the end. And I said, don't worry, it's not the end. You'll see a lot more of me. Because we will bring them together. So here are some of the comments and suggestions from them about, the implementation plan. So they said, let me read it from my slide because I can't see it. It said, keep staff informed of what steps are being taken and when. My deepest hope is that this work will be taken seriously. Clear action and implementation plan with progress reports. Do not try to accomplish too much too soon, which will lead to frustration and lack of progress. The district should not try to take on too much. They must communicate clearly and they must respect schools, culture, and independence. Work with teachers, don't dictate to them. Rely on, solicit input and expertise from schools and teachers who are already doing some of these things. Follow up later on. Karine made me feel better. Yay. Do we get to see you all again? This has been fabulous and productive. Thank you for supporting us, much needed. Thanks for the guidance, and there will be a push from the top down. We all need to work together to make change. And again, the recommendation is to continue to seek feedback from our stakeholders, embed these actions and services, plan, implement, and monitor and communicate and make sure that, again, we are reaching out to the same group of people that made this recommendation because we spent hours and hours of coming up with these ideas. And that is it.
So we had 26 in the working group and 29 in the steering committee. And so after the working group would come up with some recommendations, then the steering committee would look at what they recommended. Did they ever come together as one, or was it always?
It was always separate. So we had some students also as part of the steering committee, so we couldn't, we didn't want to pull them during the day.
So again, I just go back to, we heard about burnout today. And then one of the directions here is to clear action and implementation plan with progress reports, and also to try not to accomplish too much too soon. So those are the two things that I'm really taking from this, is that, and we know that communication is one of the things that we need to work on. So how we roll this out, what we focus on and what we prioritize, and then not trying to do, because we're already, like we already said, there's already some things in progress right now. So, are those things continually going to be in progress, or are there going to be a tapering off where we can start to build on and work on other things? I think having the group come together and put a list of priorities, I think is fantastic, so that we aren't doing a bunch of things mediocre, where we're actually doing things successfully and then moving on to the next thing. Because I understand, one of the hardest things for me as a board member is patience, and that I want everything to happen tomorrow, can we just get it all fixed? But the thing I have to learn sitting here for going on 8 years now is that it takes a lot of time to get the changes that we need going, and that, but those are the things that last. So I'm just hoping that we move forward in a way that's holistic so that people come with us.
What's the timeline for developing that small group of staff that's going to prioritize?
So what I would like to do is meet with them before school ends in May to prioritize, because, yeah, because I have to write the LCAP.
Yeah. Oh, just that.
170 pages.
Don't act like you don't have it done already.
LCAP is a
I think that's
beast.
part of the message, is that, yes, there's a lot of work, but we're gonna take it in bites.
Yes.
And,
Okay.
you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I
Yeah.
think it's an overused expression.
That's,
I mean, I'm heartened,
It's
I'm
good.
heartened to see that there's items that you've already said will take 2 or 3 years. That you can at least start the process, but know you're not pushing yourselves. Cool. Are there any other questions for Ms. Baca on this item?
thank you.
Now, we're done with Ed Trust West, right?
Your,
Their audit of the.
their audit is complete. However, they had reached out to us and asked us if we wanted for free, do an assignment analysis for English language arts. And Jefferson High School said that they would be willing to do that so that we can test out our scope and sequence. Yes, they're very excited. But they are finished with us, but they always say we can reach back out to them if we need assistance. They like
This is
us.
right, too.
Yeah, we like free.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, moving on, item 14B1, Equity Subcommittee, Equity Policy and Mission Statement, Dr. Deloria.
So there was a request to put this on the agenda for discussion. There's interest by at least 2 board members in kind of continuing the work of the SIG DIS committee, but in the vein of equity, to have one place where, besides developing a district equity policy and a district mission statement, to figure out how you bring all of the things we're doing together under one, I guess, equity umbrella. So I don't know if I'm explaining that well, Kalima. You can kind of help me out. I did ask Doreen to be here tonight because we are talking about using some of those same people. So maybe, I think you can explain it better than I just did.
Yeah, no worries. So, as you know, because we've talked about it a lot, that Andy and I have been part of the CSBA Equity Network. And so we've been learning a lot, and I just want to start bringing some of that stuff back here because we've been tasked to do that. And then even in conjunction with looking at the presentation and the piece on the cultural piece on relevance, I really feel like this group could focus on that piece of the work. And so when we first started the SIG DIS group, again with these names of things, but with the SIG DIS group, I really was happy that Doreen and Kristen at the time really broadened the role of that group to focus on more equity and bias and not just specifically on the issues that were highlighted by the state of California, but really broadened the scope to really look at the equity and bias piece. So I feel like we started this work last year, I can't remember, 2 years ago, and that it stopped because of the staff turnover, other issues, and I would just like to get it started again. I thought it was a really good group of folks, and that were having some really good discussions to start it off, but we really never got into a lot of action because we were really doing a lot of the discussion and learning about what the core issues were. So if we could bring that group back and have that group be the group that's tasked with working on an equity statement and developing an equity plan, working in line with everything that we just learned from Education Trust West, to see what we can do to make our school more equitable and more reflective of the different cultures and races that inhabit the different schools. And there are different things that Andy and I did, like we did equity walks at the different schools, which I thought was extremely helpful and powerful, and really not just seeing what that school was doing, but also just opening my eyes to things that I need to be looking for in terms of what equity looks like, what equity sounds like, what when somebody is teaching equitably, what that means. So really putting that framework in place, and then really talking about the structure of the system. And again, I've said this before, but the key question that we're tasked with was that this system was made to be inequitable. So what do we need to do in order to break that system? Because the system is working as it is designed to do. It's like it's designed to sort kids and work for some privileged few and not work for others. So taking that in mind, how do we move forward so that we are actually being equitable for all of our students, is one key piece. And the other piece is, I know I push back a lot against the months. The months, like Black History Month, and Women's, you know, because, and so I only bring that up now because I know that that's been challenging for some people, including people on the board. And I don't mind like bringing the celebrations back, but to me, I question why there was so much focus on the celebration of the month, but there hasn't been enough focus on, if we just taught that stuff all year, we wouldn't need the months. Do you know what I mean? Like if we just taught women's history the way it should be taught, we wouldn't need a month. If we just taught any cultural history, let alone African American history or Asian American history, or, I mean, you know, for my children, they didn't learn about themselves at school. Like that was my job, that was my sister's job, because you know you're not going to see yourself reflective. If you're African American, you show up in slavery, then you disappear, then you show up again in the civil rights movement, then you disappear again, and then Barack Obama was president. You know, and that's our entire scope of history. You learn about 4 or 5 different people, Harriet Tubman, you know, like it's just Martin Luther King. You don't learn about anybody else. And I'm blessed to be African American because at least you learn something. If you're Filipino, if you're Thai, you know, you learn absolutely nothing, right? If you're Chinese, well, you built a railroad, and you know, and
Chinese Exclusion Act, and that's about it.
right. So, I mean, I feel like that's why I push back against the months, because to me, if we just did our jobs in the classroom, we wouldn't need to do the months. So I'm hoping that we can start that work through this process and really be a place where we're reflective of our students and our population and teach a full, inclusive education that really highlights the United Nations that is our school district. Like, we have so many different cultures and here, and the only time I see that celebrated is stuff that's outside, like, you know, at Mission Fusion or at FAME or something. You know, it's always something that's outside of our core curriculum. It's not anything that's part of the core curriculum.
So do you envision this as a board subcommittee with a couple of board members plus some members of the SIGDIS committee? Or do you see it some other structure?
I think it should be, I thought the makeup of the SIGDIS was a great microcosm of stakeholders. There was parents, there were grandparents, there was a grandparent, there was students, there were principals, there were teachers, there were board members, there were administrators. I thought it was a nice representation of all the groups, and so I would love to see that again.
Okay.
So the same size and then some board representation. Okay. So I'm just thinking about staff time, and how often would you like this committee to meet?
I don't know. I think we were meeting every other month, something like that.
I think we're meeting twice a semester.
Twice a semester. So I mean,
That might be enough.
yeah, I think that's good. I don't want to put additional strain on staff.
With the goal being that by the end, we'd have an equity policy and mission statement.
Right, and have some, because I think this group would be a great group to do the work that's already been highlighted in the Education Trust West report about the cultural, about the climate and culture on campus, and that to be more culturally inclusive, and all those things that are tasked. I think this would be a good group to help flesh out what does that mean and what does that look like.
Do you see this then as an ad hoc committee? So once you achieve some certain objectives that it ends, or is it ongoing?
I would think it'd be ongoing. I mean, I think that it should be an ongoing group too, where I don't think this work ever is complete.
I think that staff needs to get together then and think who's going to be the lead on this committee. So I don't think we have to talk about that tonight, but we should get together and talk about that. Okay, other feedback from, are you thinking you and Andy because you've been through the Equity Network?
I don't want to volunteer any. I mean, I would love to do it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I mean, I'd love to, but it makes sense. You guys have done a lot of work on this.
And there's talk that it'll continue next year as well.
Yeah.
I think I have enough to
Okay.
add that unless, Ms. Tejada, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Is this committee just to like?
For like studies of like other cultures, is that what it is, or?
I think it's a committee, because it's a committee to focus on equity, but I think one of the most inequitable things that happens in our school systems is that we don't learn about ourselves. And so I think that is just one piece when we're talking about really truly equitable outcomes and preparing students for life after us, is that how do you know where you're going if you weren't taught where you came from at all? So I just think that's one piece of it.
I think a great essential question that this subcommittee could address is, what does culturally responsive teaching look like?
Exactly.
Okay, so, I mean, one of the things I heard you talking about is when you were doing your equity walks, that you were going through elementary classrooms, and although the teachers were teaching in different ways, it was clear that the curriculum, what was being taught, what the students were expected to learn and be able to do, was the same.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, I think having an essential question around what does culture responsive teaching look like? Now, how do you make sure that all of your cultures are being represented in the curriculum? And how do you make sure you're not choosing activities that only appeal to a certain number of students in the classroom? But I think that would be a great first essential question to be thinking about.
And I know one of the things that I was like, oh, that was like a light bulb moment, was that what the principal talked about. We went around the school, we saw the culture of the students were reflected all over the school, in their pictures that were on the walls, the banners that were hanging outside. And so I just brought that up, and he said that it's not enough to open doors, but you also have to have mirrors. Like if you open a door, but you don't let students know that it's possible for them to walk through that door, there's no point of opening the door. And so I was like, yeah, oh my God, like, yeah, have a bunch of mirrors around. So with how we hire, with, again, if you don't, what we teach, the books that we offer, you know, all these type of different things, I think, are things that need to be looked at and addressed. Because if you walked around our schools right now, you would not be able to tell how culturally diverse our schools are if the students weren't in school and you just walked through the campus.
And the other piece of it too, I mean, because this is a vision and mission statement and a policy, this is really for us as a district moving forward, for whoever succeeds us in these seats.
Sure.
You know, saying that this is what's important to us, and we want it to be important to whoever comes after us.
Okay, I think I have
Enough, thank you.
All right, so we've got a slew of board policies and ARs from 14B2 through 14B6. Dr. Deloria?
Nothing very exciting here,
Yeah, these
so.
Ergonomics and things like this. I don't know if I'd say a slew after doing all those bylaws.
Yeah, this is
I
not-
breezed through these, yeah.
5 is kind of small.
I was like, oh my God, she was busy, because there's only 5.
There's more coming, but
Okay.
these will just bring us up to date with changes in ed code, or labor code especially.
Sounds good. Great. Well, item 15, any consideration of future agenda items?
So I have a question for the board, if that's okay with you. One of the, there are some social justice standards out there, out in the world. There's one set in particular that span preschool through grade 12. And I'm wondering if the board has any interest in taking a look at these standards. Actually, maybe the subcommittee might want to look at them. But they're a great way to work with every student every day in every class. You embed them into all your classrooms. It's not a program, it's just a set of standards, and it moves students kind of from a phase of just knowing yourself to a place to where you get to be an advocate for others. So I'm wondering if the board would be interested in hearing about those and looking at those.
Let's lift it on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay. If there's nothing else, item 16, adjournment. So tonight we will adjourn, first one we'll mention, we will adjourn tonight's meeting in honor of Maximo Romani, the father of Giselle Seipert, accounting technician for our district. Mr. Romani passed away Wednesday, March 6th in Lima, Peru. Mr. Romani started working at the age of 13 and was a hardworking man. He was a very happy person who loved dancing, swimming, math, and doing calculations and life. Mr. Romani had a store at the Ecuador border with Peru where he used to sell all kinds of fabric, bed sheets, and comforters. He was a great salesman and could convince you to buy anything he was selling. His favorite motto was, "Our life is the only one, and we need to enjoy every moment." We send our condolences to Giselle, the Seipert family, the Romani family, and a host of family, friends, and loved ones. And we will also adjourn tonight's meeting in honor of Marty Ash Achapinti, 75 years old, and the father of our board member, Nick Achapinti, and he passed away the other day from metastatic lung cancer. So our condolences to Nick and the rest of the Achapinti family on the passing of Marty. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to, anything else you want to add?
No, just
Okay.
motion to adjourn.
Haha, no. Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
You guys
Alright.
can like kick it to school board.
Meeting adjourned at 8:57 PM.
Thank you.
So hungry. Is it so hungry because
Well,
that spicy food I couldn't eat.
I'm sorry, but yeah, what, you want a violin?